I'm finally back. Taking 6 months off from the hobby has made me a much better sports card flipper, and I'm going to share with you why. I took 6 months off, no buying, no selling, no going to shows, no looking at stuff, checking eBay, none of it. First, why did I take the time off? It's really quite simple. My wife and I had our first baby. At the same time, we moved across the state to a completely different city, and I got really busy with a bunch of other work ventures. The big change of life and just the increasing demand on my time made me want to step away and just focus on other priorities. But honestly, that break from the hobby gave me some clarity that I did not expect. So what did I learn in those 6 months away, and how did that make me a better sports card flipper? The first and probably most important thing I learned in that time is the difference between time and value and how those relate to each other when it comes to sports cards. I was spending a lot of time on the hobby in general, constantly searching for deals, constantly checking comps and prices, checking charts, listing cards, making content, checking eBay, Instagram, constantly trying to work out trades on different apps, scanning all the time. It felt like every single day I was putting in a lot of time. But stepping away and doing very little sports card activity in that 6 months made me realize you can get 80% of the output with 20% of the time spent. All of that constant daily activity, it feels like you're doing something. It feels like you're being productive, but it's mostly just noise. It's mostly just habit, just checking things. The ROI just isn't there. And what I realized is when I started to break my time spent into ROI, or return on investment, I started to behave a little differently and focus my time on the aspects of the hobby that were the most profitable. So when you find yourself doing a sports card activity, ask yourself, is there a direct ROI to the time spent on this? Is this activity useful? Listing cards for sale at the right time? That's a good ROI. Getting sucked down a wormhole of sports card related reels or TikToks? Probably not a great use of time. I found personally for me, I could reduce the amount of time to 20% of the time I was spending and still get 80% of the result. One key way I found to do this for me to limit the amount of time is the types of transactions I would make in purchasing cards, which this goes into point number 2. Both from a time standpoint and a money standpoint, buying in bulk is ultimately one of the best ways to be successful in the hobby. First, let's think about it from a time standpoint. If you're going to make 20 different transactions and buy 20 different cards, and perhaps you've researched and you've really felt like these particular cards are the right ones to buy, and you may be right. However, side note, there's a little bit of speculation in that. But let's say you've done the research. Now you need to make 20 different transactions. You have to pay for shipping 20 different times if you're buying online. And ultimately, it just creates a lot more work. You open 20 different packages, you have to open them, it just starts to add up. It's also harder to get a good deal when you're buying just one particular card from somebody, even if it's a card that you feel is a good purchase to make. I have put way more energy into buying bulk deals. And this is a tale as old as time. Anything you buy in bulk, you typically buy at a better deal. This is not a revelatory point in the hobby. People have been doing this since the beginning. But I have found sellers that have multiple things that I like, multiple things that I feel are a good investment, either are listing lots of slabs or singles, or their page has multiple cards, multiple things I like. I find it's better to spend more time on that one particular seller that you find, get one big bulk bundle deal of things that you feel like are right, and make that transaction. Oftentimes you can get these cards for 70 to 80% of comps, depending on how many cards you get, the types of cards, and what's motivating the seller at that time. Maybe they just want to liquidate some things. But in short, I find for me, this also takes a lot of the speculation out of it. If I'm trying to just hunt certain cards and watch their prices, I'm really speculating on a certain card to go up in value in order for it to be profitable. But if you can buy a larger amount of cards for a little bit under comps, again, it's a tale as old as time. Everybody does this. But it really is an effective way to make money flipping sports cards. Let's say you only had $500 and you wanted to get into flipping sports cards. A few years ago, I would have said, okay, do some research, find specific cards that are down in value that aren't going to go back up. but it's very speculative. If you have $500 and you're trying to get into flipping, the best way to get the most value out of that is spend all of that $500 with one person. Maybe you can buy 20 different cards at $500. Boom. Now you have some inventory that you can start selling and building some cash flow. And it doesn't rely as much on the speculation of a player performing well or a team winning. Now, that's not to say I don't still do that. I do definitely do some speculation. I think that's part of the fun, but it's definitely not the bulk of my time and money spent. The last thing I learned in taking a break from the hobby is something that you have probably also realized. Grading cards is getting extremely difficult. Everybody's grading cards now. It's getting a lot more difficult to find people that are selling raw cards that are in potential gem mint condition. Don't get me wrong, there are still a lot of people doing it, but now the pendulum has shifted. Hypothetically, let's say there's this many people that grade cards and there's this many people that sell raw cards and don't intend to grade. That's really flipping, where it's this many people are sending raw cards and this many people are grading cards. Again, that's just a blanket, example, but you get what I'm saying. Grading is still an important part of flipping sports cards though, but this is where I've started to apply a lot more caution to my grading submissions, and I've dialed way back on the number of cards that I send. Raw cards are selling for significantly higher than PSA 9s. So if you're out there just trying to buy individual cards that are raw to grade, trust me, I've done a lot of that over the last year, and I've had back-to-back submissions that didn't go super well from doing that. I personally have had better success just buying big bulks of raw and slab and just selling them as is. PSA just announced that you can set a minimum grade for your submission. So this means you could submit 20, 30 cards, set a minimum grade of 10, and you get all your cards back, but the only ones that are slabbed are the ones that were graded a 10, and the rest, they just leave raw. So that means it's great for PSA because they have to slab fewer cards and make the same amount of money. But now think how many more raw cards are going to get sold and put out into the market that were already graded by PSA as a 9 or an 8, and the seller is just passing them back along. Everybody's going to be doing it. So how can you really rely on buying raw cards online that are gemmable? This is a whole other topic I want to make a different video on, but I'd love to hear some of your comments. What's grading been like for you lately? Last thing, I know I already kind of did 3 things, but this is just like an extra 4th thing. I have found it to be way more efficient to do most of my business at shows. For me as a flipper, not a full-blown shop, not a full-blown business, I love just spending a Saturday, going to a show, selling a bunch of stuff, and buying some stuff that I feel like is right. You just can get so many transactions done in one day that don't require shipping, that don't require printing labels, that don't require dropping things off, that don't require opening packages, throwing away all the extra bubble mail or cardboard stuff. It's just simpler, efficient way to live. I love going to shows. It's a lot better use of time for me personally. Taking this 6-month break from the hobby was extremely beneficial for me. Helped me realize I can spend my time on things that are more productive and not be on such a daily grind. Have you ever taken a break from the hobby? I would love to hear your comments below. What was that experience like for you, even if it was just a couple weeks? Thank you for subscribing to this channel. I'm going to be making more regular content about flipping sports cards and maybe a little Pokemon as well. Thanks for subscribing. Catch you next time.